Hello and welcome again. I've been looking forward to sharing this particular message with you in this particular episode today. Something Anne-Marie and I have noticed far too often is that there's this prevailing message out there that healing from loss, it's not really possible. And unfortunately, that message seems to say that the best you can hope for after suffering a devastating loss is feeling somewhat better over time, maybe adjusting your expectations and accepting that you will be mourning forever. And that means living a less enjoyable, less vibrant, and less hopeful life. Well, that sounds pretty grim to me. How about you? And I remember feeling that way in my own grief journey and grappling with the need to accept that my former life was over. And you know what? Life as I had known it was over. Indeed, that is a big part of the loss we feel, that the life as we have known it is over. But hold on. Just because life as I knew it was over, it did not mean that my life was over. It did not mean that my life could never be good again. And it certainly did not mean sadness would be my dominant state of mind forevermore. But at the time, and you can probably relate to this, it sure felt that way. In fact, it probably feels something like that to you right now. Do you believe that you can never really have an enjoyable, satisfying life again as a result of losing your loved one? If so, let me tell you that not only can people heal from a difficult loss, they do heal from such losses. But not everyone does. And the reason they don't is that we aren't naturally equipped to heal from such huge losses. Now, as we consider the topic of healing from loss, let me share with you what healing from loss is and isn't. First, it isn't any of the following. Healing from loss isn't a natural or instinctual process. I mean, few of us would have ever been taught this, right? There is a lot of misinformation out there like time heals all wounds. It doesn't. But I've never met a person who prior to experience their big loss knew what to do about it. Healing from loss is not about forgetting or replacing your loved one. In fact, it's the opposite. And I'll let you in on a little secret. You could not forget your loved one if you tried as hard as you could. Healing from loss will not dishonor your loved one. I mean, how can living a meaningful and enjoyable life in the future dishonor someone who's died? In fact, I think the opposite is much more likely true. How about this? Think about people you love right now. If you suddenly died, would you want them to be miserable for the rest of their lives? I'll bet not. So why then would such a standard be set for you? Think about that. Healing from loss is not easy, it's not quick, nor is it painless. In fact, healing will take time and it will require you to acknowledge, then name, and ultimately process the emotional pain that naturally follows the loss of an important person in your life. And don't worry that you don't know how to do that now. We'll show you how. Healing is not some superficial sugary topping that's applied to this awful tasting chapter of life in order to cover up pain. That's like pretending. And pretending that everything is okay? No, your loss is real. The emotional pain you feel is real. Your mental, emotional, and physical reaction to loss is real, and it's natural, and it's normal. Healing from loss is not about creating a completely new life. I mean, think of your life as a book you are writing. If you suffer a devastating loss in, let's say, chapter 35, sounds good. Does that mean the book is over and the next chapter of your life will be chapter 1 of a completely different book? Of course not. That's silly. Right now, you're actually writing the next chapter in the same book because there is only one book of your life. And the name of this chapter is My Grief Journey After Losing My Loved One, filled in his or her name. Healing from loss does not mean never being sad again. Of course you are going to feel sad again. You're going to miss your loved one. Such a time might be predictable, like around a birthday or an anniversary, some date that was important to you, or the date of their death. And sometimes a cloud of sadness or melancholy might pass over you, and that seems to come out of nowhere. But here's the thing, you will be able to weather such times, and more importantly, your memories will become more and more focused on the pleasant, the humorous, and the general positive memories. And you'll feel less and less pain associated with those memories. That's what healing is more about. So let me tell you more about what healing from loss is. First, healing from loss requires examining your loss and understanding it from a healthy perspective. Please note that this is a process that does not create new pain. But friends, it requires that you thoroughly look at the painful emotions you are feeling and even those that may be pushed down under the surface that you haven't faced yet. So you will sometimes experience pain you couldn't previously identify in the process of healing. Next, healing from loss will help you to remember your loved one well. It just will, because you're remembering the whole of them, the real person and the relationship as it was. And so that allows the pain to dissipate. Healing from your loss will open you to and prepare you for writing the next chapter of your continuing life story. Healing from your loss means opening the door to not just feeling better, not just functioning better, but living more fully again. Anne-Marie and I have helped many people heal through their grief, so we know this works. While every grief journey is unique, as is every loss, there are important elements and requirements to experience healing. We have learned more and more about what helps and what doesn't help. We've applied these concepts and we've formulated exercises that we know will help you heal too. When you're fully informed about grief and loss, and that's what we're doing now, when you have experienced the phases of first surviving, existing, and you have entered into the seeking phase, you will be ready to move forward with an intentional healing process through your grief. Perhaps you're almost already there, or maybe you are in the early part of your journey. You'll know when you are ready, when your main motivation is not to escape the emotional pain, oh, I don't want to feel that, but rather a desire to move toward living a more satisfying life again. And in doing so, willing to bravely face and process the pain of your loss. Hey, we'll be there, walking alongside you, in a virtual sense, of course, when that time comes. A brief preview of what you will experience during the healing phase of your grief journey includes the following. First, you really have to understand the nuances of grief and loss. We build on a foundation of knowledge. Second, regaining a sense of what it means to be you, which sometimes we can lose touch with during the time of us. And when I say the time of us, I'm referring to the integrated relationship you had with your loved one who is now lost to you. Third, acknowledging and processing the pain you are feeling. It's the key exercise. Examining and taking in the whole of the relationship you had with your loved lost one. And that's got to include the best, the worst, and the in-between. And finally, creating closure with each element of your relationship with your loved one. Now, this will be readying yourself to begin writing the next chapter of your life while continuing to honor and remember your loved one. That person remains a big part of who you are. So, wrapping up today's episode, I want to provide you, as always, with the key points I want you to remember. Healing from loss is definitely possible, despite what you might have heard to the contrary. Healing from loss will require your commitment and your involvement an openness to guidance. You've got to let us guide you along. And of course, allowing sufficient time to complete your journey. It doesn't happen overnight. Healing from loss means honoring and remembering your loved one well. And healing from your loss means opening the door to not just feeling better, but living more fully again. And as is our pattern, we want to leave you with a stepping stone. What I'd like you to do is to find a quiet, calm setting to sit with your thoughts. And I want you to ask yourself these questions I think will help you process it. Ask yourself, where do I think I am in my grief journey right now? Do I relate to any of the first 3 stages of surviving, existing, or seeking? Secondly, do I believe that healing from my loss is possible? Examine that. Why or why not? And when I think about healing, am I more focused on escaping my emotional pain, my misery, or am I sensing that I'm ready to move into a healing phase in order to live a more abundant life again? The reflection from today is from an ultra marathon runner, these guys that run like 50, 100 and more miles. His name is Yannis Kouros, and he said, without patience, you will never conquer endurance. And I share that with you because, as I've mentioned in earlier episodes, this is not a foot race, it's not a sprint, it is more of an ultra marathon. And you have to take it over time, and you have to hit certain points in that journey for it to be successful. But we know how to do it, and we will help you through that process. So for today, I want to let you go. I thank you for tuning in to this episode. And I want to give you one proviso too. Before you move into the next and the last episode, as it refers to this series on the journey of grief, I'd like you to put a little time in between, but I'd like you to listen to this episode at least one more time. And the reason for that is there's so much in this that I want you to understand about where you're heading if you are to be healed, that I really think it's worth your time. And in the meantime, please be well.